Hello Year 10 and welcome to the analysis of Stave 4 Part 2. So, you need to start off the lesson by writing your title and date. So your title is Analysing Stave 4 Part 2. Your date is whatever today's date is. Complete this in your book. Okay, so as you know, as I remind you every analysis lesson, your exam will require you to analyse extracts, but also to explore the novel as a whole. So this lesson is going to help you to do this. So your keywords for the lesson. So today just one word, and that is penitence. So penitence is feeling a sense of sorrow and regret for your actions. So who shows penitence and how? Can you write me a sentence in your book? So blank shows penitence in A Christmas Carol when or because. Pause the video and do that now, please. Okay, straight onto context corner. So you need to add this to your context mind map once we've read through it. So 3 bullet points, please. Literature from the period reflects the prevalence of children's deaths in Victorian England. The dying child makes a frequent appearance to 19th century novels. Victorian children were at risk of dying from a lot of diseases that we've eradicated or can control in the 21st century, like smallpox, measles, whooping cough, diphtheria and dysentery, to name just a few. Death was a common visitor to Victorian households, and the younger one was, the more vulnerable he or she would be. Infant and child mortality was very high during the Victorian era, that was 1837 to 1901. High mortality rates among the young were the result of industrialisation, which led to rapid urbanisation, increased pollution, severe impoverishment, and exploitation of child labour. In 1856, Archibald Tate, the future Archbishop of Canterbury, lost 5 children in just as many weeks to scarlet fever. When the fever wasn't fatal, it nearly always weakened the child, who died months or even years later from complications. Okay, so we looked at infant mortality and that 50% of babies died before the age of 1 2 analysis lessons ago. This is just a little bit more detail to add to your context mind map. So can you please pause the video and boil this down to 3 bullet points now? So let's have a quick recap what we wrote at the end of Stave 3. There was a high infant mortality rate in Victorian London. Half of babies died before age 1. 1 in 10 girls were in work by the age of 9. Many poor children worked dirty and dangerous jobs. So we're going to now develop a bit on infant mortality, hence I've done a little arrow. Okay. So let's start with children were at risk of dying from a lot of diseases we can prevent nowadays. So smallpox, measles, whooping cough, diphtheria and dysentery are examples. The younger a child, the more vulnerable they were. So Tiny Tim being the youngest, or one of the youngest, is obviously more vulnerable than the older ones like Martha and Peter. Okay, and when children survived e.g. scarlet fever, they were often weakened and had a lower life expectancy. There we go. Okay. If you've not got your notes down, get those down now. Okay, Year 10, so your question for today is, what is the significance of Tiny Tim's death? So the first task you're going to complete is you're going to create a timeline for the Cratchit family in your book. So you might want to start with the message that the Cratchits are used to convey, or you might want to start with the timeline. I would suggest you go through the 3 staves in which they turn up, so 1, 3 and 4, and say what is happening and then think about the message they get across. So we start with, in Stave 1, Bob Cratchit is. You can probably remember a few of those quotes that are used to describe Bob Cratchit in the first stave. So dismal little cell, and his fire is described as it looked like one coal. And then Scrooge has a go at him about having the audacity to take Christmas Day off and wanting to be paid. So we've got a few quotes there. So what is Bob Cratchit used to show there in Stave 1? Is he showing something about Scrooge? Is he showing something about employees and employers? Write something down. And then in Stave 3, we meet the Cratchits at Christmas when they are. How are they described? So you were given some quotes to make flashcards for about them not being well dressed or wealthy, but being happy. So go and find that quote. Also got, Mrs. Cratchit brave in ribbons. You've got the Christmas dinner described as eked out by applesauce. And how nobody thought it was a small goose. So go and find some quotes. What do those quotes show you about the Cratchits? And then in Stave 4, obviously we have the death of Tiny Tim. So what are the Cratchits like there? Okay, so we've got, Bob breaking down and saying, "My little child." Very, very sad scenes. So once you've worked out kind of how the Cratchits are presented at those 3 different points, what are they overall used to convey the message of? So is it one of social responsibility? Is it to show us something about the poor? Is he humanizing the poor? And showing that they have hopes and dreams and feelings too. Is it to show, human goodness? Have a think about, what do the Cratchits show? And then by the end of the novella, I predict the Cratchits will be. I'll leave that one up to you. So pause the video now and complete this timeline and try and think about an overall message. Okay, so here is your extract. So I'm going to read through it, and then we'll look at this question, which is one that you completed the other day. A churchyard. Here then the wretched man whose name he had now to learn lay underneath the ground. It was a worthy place, walled in by houses, overrun by grass and weeds, the growth of vegetation's death, not life, choked up with too much burying, fat with repleted appetite. A worthy place. The spirit stood among the graves and pointed down to one. He advanced towards it trembling. The phantom was exactly as it had been, but he dreaded that he saw new meaning in its solemn shape. "Before I draw nearer to that stone to which you point," said Scrooge, "answer me one question. Are these the shadows of things that will be, or are they the shadows of things that may be only?" Still the ghost pointed downward to the grave by which it stood. "Men's courses will foreshadow certain ends to which, if persevered in, they must lead," said Scrooge. "But if the courses be departed from, the ends will change. Say it is thus with what you show me." The spirit was as immovable as ever. Scrooge crept towards it, trembling as he went, and following the finger, read upon the stone of the neglected grave his own name. "Ebenezer Scrooge." "Am I the man who lay upon the bed?" he cried upon his knees. The finger pointed from the grave to him and back again. "No, spirit, oh no, no." So, starting with this extract, how does Dickens present the power of the supernatural? So, we looked at this question 2 analysis lessons ago. So it was how Dickens presents the supernatural in this extract, and then Scrooge in the novel as a whole. So you're going to, for your second task, you're not going to answer this full question because you've just done one task and so there's not enough time. But you're going to write an analysis of this extract in response to the question. So you've got 15 minutes to pick out 3 quotes and to write how he presents the supernatural in this extract. And think about the bigger picture and the bigger question. How is that supernatural, as presented in the extract, having or showing power? Okay. So just a reminder before you set off and start writing, you need to make a clear point that shows understanding the extract. You need to link that point to your context. So what we've learned about, social justice, child mortality, workers and employers. Go back to your context mind map, pick the most relevant context. 3 interesting quotations. See if you can do that in 15 minutes. It's going to be a challenge. For each one, identify a technique or word and give a clear effect. Consider the writer's message and use ambitious vocabulary. And of course, the ambitious vocabulary is here. So I think using didactic could be a good one here. Indictment that we did last lesson. Okay. And then if you're aiming for grade 7, you want an umbrella point that identifies a pattern in language and links together your quotes, and be really specific about Dickens's message. So really make explicit, what is he trying to say about Victorian society? Embed those quotes, analyze imagery and devices and zooms for each quote, evaluate the message and use that ambitious vocabulary. So I'll leave you with this extract. Pick out 3 quotes, write up a paragraph with the 3 quotes analysed, and remember, link it back to the power of the supernatural. Good luck, Year 10. Off you go.